Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Deckin Around the Plug. Today we are so excited to have Luke Wadey on to talk about his recently launched ARW V2 campaign. But before we jump into it, everybody, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel.
And what else?
Ring the bell.
In this video, I'm going to show you how to create this.
Oh, Luke, welcome.
Oh my god. How you doing, man? How's the campaign is crushing so far, man.
I don't even know what to say about the campaign. I mean, we're here to talk about it, and I have no idea what's going on. So.
I mean, you must be thrilled, dude. You must be pumped.
I'm pretty overwhelmed by it. I mean, you never quite get used to your campaign funding at all, let alone so quickly and so much. So yeah, I don't know. You tell me what's going on.
What's going on? You came out with a dope deck, and they funded.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the end of the episode, right? Job done.
No, not at all. Also, I don't know why that popped in there, but that's fine. I'm trying to get things ready here, and it just decides to roll over us all completely there. But either way, man, I have to say, when you first dropped the original ARW V1, I think that was definitely a different kind of direction for your cards. And I know for a long time, you and I have always discussed, and I think we've discussed as a group, your desire to push even more specifically into that cardistry market. And I personally, like, not being a cardist, always thought of like the mono series as very like cardistry friendly. But I think that arrow design really kind of was that gateway in for you. What kind of made you, I feel like you even stepped it up more with ARW V2. What kind of made you change the underlying design so drastically from the original?
I think it was just the kind of, I wanted to naturally evolve it so that it had a little bit more energy to it, just because I felt like the feedback, and I feel like taking feedback on is important whenever you're creating a series of decks, is that it just kind of felt almost too clean and a bit too regimented, which is fine because it was meant to be based around street signs, and street signs aren't particularly interesting. But I figured for the V2 we'd bring some color into it, albeit a little bit, and just try to make it that little bit more energetic, if you like.
Yeah.
Nice.
What made you go with the neon pink rather than a neon yellow or another color?
So all the decks will kind of be linked in some way. So the accent color on the tuck box of V1 is the little pinky bits, little coral bits. So into V2, we'll use it now as part of the back design. And then into V3, there'll be some underlying tone or color that will feature. And I haven't decided what yet because I haven't. So we got time.
That's a good enough answer.
I mean, I think the neon pink as well is kind of like it's funny because so many people ask me, like, is it red or is it pink? I'm like, there isn't really a word for that color. It's rink. I don't know. Pred. So
that's for sure.
Anyone who's got a Pantone book, just get it out and you'll see it.
It definitely pops though. Like, I love that color, and it really, I think, adds an interesting kind of contrast to it because, like you said, some people are going to see it as red, some are going to see it as pink. Some are going to see it as, some weird combination of the two. I love it, though. I think it pops so nicely against the black top.
Thank you. It's quite fun when you're going through choosing colors for decks, and Steve's obviously dabbling in it as well now, because it really can make or break a deck. If you pick the wrong color, it looks too dull, or if you go too leery, then it just doesn't fit the theme. So it's one of the fun parts about designing, that you get to choose that emotion through your colors.
Oh, for sure. It's definitely a fun journey just going with what color you want, right? It's a battle, actually. I don't know if it's a fun journey. It's definitely a battle as to, what to choose, because there's so many freaking colors, and the color you like is maybe not what color your fan base is going to like.
Exactly. And I suppose that the thing with this deck as well is it was trying to take that kind of street signage and move into more like street art vibe, which is generally so colorful. But obviously I want to do it in my way, which a lot of my decks seem to have black and white in them now. It's kind of become an underlying tone. But it was kind of like just creating something that used the color that really brought the energy into it, and not necessarily having a relevance to street art, if you like. but just something that really pops so that during your flourishes and packet cuts and things like that, the movement is still captured with the color and your eye still follows that color.
Yeah.
No, I think kind of the graphic nature of it, the graffiti art vibe is awesome. I definitely think it's a super cool design on the deck, and like you said, you like to bring in something from the first one, and just those arrows on the back, there could have been any type of arrow, right? But
Exactly.
I like the homage to V1 arrows kind of.
Well, originally I mean, like you'll know from the Patreon anyway, but one of the first kind of initial designs was using the same style of arrow, and this is proper nerding out now. Like talking about the design of arrows, I mean, there's so many different ways you can do it, and you could quite easily just go on Clipart or Shutterstock and just buy an arrow and then say that's it. But when you get into it and when you take pride in your work, you really can just kind of craft it, and to many it will just look like an arrow. It will look like just a simple arrow, but when you work out the proportions and the width and the scale and just things like that, it's something that in your mind that you've created and you're happy with.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, 100%.
Now, and I agree. I think, going for that street art vibe, you crushed it. Because the first thing I saw when I saw that deck was like, this reminds me of something you'd see it like under an overpass and like on a brick wall or on the side of a building or something. It's very, very angular, very street art, very, adding in even that little bit of color just makes it pop so much more. And I don't know if you would have gotten that same vibe had it been all black and white.
Exactly. And I think that the reasoning behind the kind of angular effect
Mark,
and stuff
we love you, man.
It's because of like direction and stuff like that. So I mean, the first one, obviously, I spoke about it in the past. It was kind of always going to be similar to like the Kevin Ho concept, and kind of using that kind of element of direction. But out of respect to him, the design changed and it became more about what it was. With this one, it's kind of using a different play on direction, so the way the kind of words distort, it still makes your eye go on a journey throughout the card. And even like the arrow pointing up into the word arrow again, it's kind of like all about that visual journey and just how direction can take different forms. It doesn't have to be as simple as an arrow. It can be typographic as well.
Right. Oh, that's cool.
Well, and I think, with your background historically of very like typographical style decks, this still fits so well there. Like, I don't think anyone would get confused and be like, oh, who designed this deck? Like, this is a Luke Wadey deck. I mean, and maybe I'm biased there because I'm a big fan of your decks in general, but like, I think people who are familiar with your previous decks see that underlying current of your style throughout all of them. I think a lot of times, whether it's someone is a big fan of Grid or they're a big fan of the Mono series, like you're really one of the only people I'll say in the community who touch on that kind of very typographical style of deck. It really just pops. Who knows? Maybe one day we'll see a deck and it'll be like, oh, that must be a Luke Wadey and it's someone new to the scene. But I think even that shows how much you've established your style within the community.
And it really is a huge compliment to, because I'm not the only one that will do this kind of style by any stretch. And it's just nice knowing that even if your kind of decks don't fall into a certain category in the community, people are still able to look at it and identify aspects with you. So it's, and we were talking about this the other day and talking about different groups and communities and things like that. I think it really is a huge compliment that someone could look at a certain aspect, even if it's just a typeface, and just think, oh, maybe Luke's had something to do with that. Like that's huge to me. So if everyone doesn't like my decks, fine, used to that. I didn't get into the game for wanting everyone to like it. God, the first campaign I ever dropped was an absolute, I don't even probably best.
The redo of the Hawk deck, man.
Do you know how many people ask me about this? There is nothing nice about that deck. Like now I look at it, I'm like
the new Luke Wadey like direction with the old deck.
Thank you, Mark.
Mark, thank you so much, brother.
Cheers, Mark. I mean, I think that would be a bigger challenge. Really take that turd and polish it. Yeah.
Just take the name and make something new. I mean, that's the other route there.
Yeah, I won't rule it out. maybe after the nice decks get done first, and then we'll revisit the revisit Hawk.
Only problem. You know, I'm gonna say this and wait for the whole sentence to be done before you guys jump on this. I hate when Luke comes out with a new deck, and the reason why. See why I asked you to say like to wait. So the reason why is because when he comes out with a new deck, then we have to wait for him to come out with another deck until this one funds. So it's like, I mean, until this one like fulfills. So it's just like, dang, he came out with a dope deck. Now I have to wait for the next deck. It's kind of like when your favorite musician comes out with a new CD. You get the CD, you listen to everything the first day, and then you're like, cool, when's the new CD coming out?
Oh, thanks, man. That's and I think, you know, when you get compliments like that, whether it be from you or whoever, it kind of, I still don't know how to take it. I really don't. So I'm just going to keep.
We're going to shower you with some here. So Ashley Goodwin says she's so excited for this deck. AJ was sitting here. He said, I was singing the praises of Grid to a lot of deaf ears back then. What a beauticious work of design. I don't. It's a made-up word, so I hope my made-up pronunciation worked there. But, you know, it's like, dude, and that's the thing. I think, you know, you even talked about it. Like, this has been a journey for you. This has been a journey where your following has definitely grown.
Yeah, and I mean, it's, you know, as I was saying before, it's nice to just know that there are some people that kind of are happy to see cards in a similar way.
Thank you, AJ.
So much, AJ.
Cheers, dude. And it, you know, it's like I say, it's Marmite as we refer to it in England. I don't know if you guys know what Marmite is.
I know what Vegemite is.
It's like that, but not the vegetable version. Basically, it's like you either love it or you hate it. It's a big advertising campaign over here. But you know, my decks will always be either adored by the small group that like them, or people will look at them and think they are trash in a good or bad way. Depends if you're curious Stu or not. So we'll just got to keep going until it happens.
And at the end of the day, you know what? If everyone loves your deck, I think that's almost worse, because then you're kind of doubting whether or not you're on the right track. If everyone loves it, you're never getting negative feedback. You're never getting that feedback that allows you to grow. It's not the people who love your stuff that help push you to grow. It's the people who hate it, because then you're like, all right, you know, most people like this aspect of a deck, but a couple people didn't. What can I do to make that better? So like, you know, having that kind of like love or hate relationship with people who see your deck, that's a good thing ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, and I think ARW V1 is the perfect example of it, because you know, the people were looking at the pips and going, okay, you've written at the bottom of the card what it is, but I still can't tell you. So it's like, okay, well, now we redesign the pips, like.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's, I think for every creator, unless you're kind of like the top dogs who don't need to. Well, maybe they do, maybe they don't know. But you should always listen to feedback and just take it on board. Otherwise,
100%.
like you say, you'll never grow.
Well, and I think, you know, like you said, you know, with even the big guys, like I think they still listen to feedback, but I think they're probably a lot more selective in how they take it in, because I think the other part of it, and even with the stuff you do, I think at any level of design, there's a reason behind the things you do. And sometimes the feedback contradicts the actual reason because someone doesn't understand the reason. And sometimes the better approach to that feedback is to explain the reason instead of changing the design. And, you know, that's kind of like, I think where there's that give and take a little bit, where even on, I think at the higher levels and some of the bigger designers just get comfortable with the fact that like, not everyone's going to get the message.
Exactly. And I mean, let's look at the like the COVID deck, the charity deck, right?
Yeah.
Got so much abuse for writing the word COVID all over it. But you know exactly what deck it is.
Yeah. And that's literally the point, was to bring visibility to the pandemic. Like it did exactly what it was supposed to do.
And you were the person to do it. So everybody that came after you doing their COVID deck.
Yeah. and here's the thing though too, and Steve and I saw a lot of this obviously going through Kickstarter every week, is yours was a charity COVID deck. All of the other COVID decks we saw were not charity COVID decks.
I mean, they were charity COVID decks, but not for the same reason.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they were lining someone else's pocket, not a charity. So it's tough, because I think ultimately people are never, not everyone's going to like everything all the time. And that's probably a tougher thing to deal with than the positive feedback or the actual like active feedback. I'm sure it's frustrating when people are like, oh, I hate this deck. And it's like, oh, well, why? And you're like, and they're just like, I just don't like it. And you're like, that's not helpful. Like,
constructive criticism is always the best, rather than just pure criticism for the sake of it. But no, you're completely right, and it goes back to what we were saying about before. Having a certain amount of people that whether they like your decks or not. I mean, if you look at Grid Series 3, there was a serious amount of backers on that, and they were getting less decks. Whereas you look at something like ARW V2, and the funding is fantastic from a smaller pool of people. But I've been talking to a couple of guys about this recently. It both ways, it really does mean the world. It doesn't matter how you get there, and it doesn't matter how many people join you or how much they pledge to you, as long as there's enough of you together to make it reality and you can all enjoy it together.
Yeah.
I didn't think that sentence was going to end. I just kept going, and then I hoped it had a point.
That's how things usually go on this show, man. That's perfectly fine. But while we're on it, why don't we actually take a look at the deck? I know for anyone out there who hasn't checked out the Kickstarter yet, there's a link in the description below, and it's also pinned to the top of the chat. So if you haven't checked it out, you definitely should. It's a absolutely gorgeous looking deck. But let's take a quick, let's see. We want to do the tuck first, or the cards in motion, or the limited edition?
Your choice. It's fine.
All right.
Tuck first.
Yeah, there we go with the tuck.
Nice.
Which I absolutely love. I think it looks so good.
So there'll be 6 decks in the collection, in the whole range, 6 standard decks, and each of them will use a similar layout, just so they can work together, including on the front, back, and sides. So yeah, but they'll all be customized into the theme of each deck, obviously.
Nice. And then checking out these cards here, which also great shots by Andrew Shue right there, just looking awesome in motion.
Thank
Andrew
you.
did a great job.
Thank you, Stu. We appreciate it, man.
Cheers, Stu.
Luke is the man. No doubt about that. Yeah, I mean, honestly, dude, these are just next level.
Yeah,
he's really made them sing in the images, which it kind of makes you proud, seeing your deck. And I'm very lucky to know a lot of people who are helpful enough to kind of make the cards look great, be it in photography or renders or however it is. And without them, I would just be making flat visuals in Photoshop still, like I was 3.5 years ago. So I'm hugely thankful to them.
Dude, like you said, it's all about growth. But yeah, it's funny because looking, I had to pull this one back up here. Just looking at these photos, I feel like you need to tap into a graffiti group on Facebook or something and just be like, oh, check out these dope playing cards. I feel like people would love the look of these. They're just so good, so clean.
I love
Thank you.
I love how you have the typography going over the arrow. You could have taken the arrow and threw it on top and it would have been totally different. The fact that you have the arrows underneath some of the text is really cool. Thank
you. And it's all part of kind of that integration and just making it a bit more considered rather than just plonking stuff on a page effectively. So
yeah, which makes sense. Yeah. So let's check out the limited edition here.
Yeah, so that one hurt my eyes when I was making that one. But
it's a lot of pink, but it looks so good.
It's I was talking to my buddy Lewis about this and just working out how we could kind of bring a slightly different dimension to the limited edition with the use of the arrows, but still make it form part of the same group. And again, the tuck box follows the same suit as the V1 limited edition, but this time we've gone for full borders, massive headache, different arrows, big color, and I'm so happy that we've kind of unlocked the Carta Mundi upgrade on the print for these, and I'm in talks with Fresh Impression about the tuck box as well, just to kind of see how we can elevate that now that we've kind of reached that level of funding with it.
Very nice. And so it was an interesting take too when I was looking through that and I saw that you had unlocked Carta Mundi, and I feel like that's probably been a long time goal of these limited editions, because historically you've always gone for NPC with these, and obviously just from a cost point of view that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, Carta Mundi, dude, that's a big step for it, because at the end of the day, as great as NPC stock feels these days, that B9 is just amazing.
And that's the thing, it's with the limited editions, I've always been about kind of Kickstarter exclusive. So it was kind of okay, 20 people want this deck on Kickstarter, there is no point me printing 200 of these decks through Cartamundi and having 180 sitting in my bedroom at home.
Yeah.
So now we've kind of got to that level where it can remain Kickstarter exclusive. But of course, we're using a different printer, and like you say, NPC doing a fantastic job with what they can create. But working with Cartamundi is always fantastic.
Yeah, they're next level for sure.
Yeah, and great guys over there. Such great guys.
Yeah.
So Stu actually had a question too. Stu wanted to know, how many times does it say arrow? Have you counted them?
I have not 1 second. No, I'm not going to count them.
I almost feel like that should be a giveaway with the campaign, man. Like if someone can figure out how many times it says arrow correctly.
Well, that'd be dope.
Butters the Cat says, as a cardist, the limited edition speaks to me. Dude, it is super bright. I can definitely see why it would have like really been hard to look at for long periods of time, but like in motion, that's going to look beautiful, dude. Like, especially because designing, you're at such a fine zoom in level where it's so big. It probably was very interesting to work on that in contrast to all the black and white, but I think people are going to jump for that one, man.
Thank you. And it's something that I kind of thought about bringing into the standard edition, but I want to give kind of a consistency. So like the V1 standard had a border, so the V2 standard has a border. The V1 limited edition was full bleed, the V2 is full bleed. So there's going to be something that can tap into both sides. And I did the same kind of thing with like the mono range and thinking about whether I should take things full bleed or not. And I think having a consistency there makes the set just that little bit more considered again, really.
Yeah.
You know, when you come up with the set, it definitely has to be a cohesive package rather than all over the place, because at that point it just doesn't turn into a set anymore, right?
Exactly. And I was saying to Sam the other day that the deck that bothers me the most at the moment, out of everything I've done, is the tuck box on the Mono X, because the sides of it are slightly different to all the other ones. So when they line up, it's like, oh, I need to reprint that tuck because that's really annoying.
Let's do a tuck reprint and send it out to 1,000 people or I don't even know. How many did you print to that one?
2,500. So
there you go, 2,500 tucks, and
yeah. Just watch out for yours in the post. It may or may not come.
Oh man, that's too good. I have to say though, I'm so excited for this deck. I think it's awesome how well the campaign has just blown up. I know when it first funded as quickly as it did, you were floored, and I think that's awesome. But I see the momentum continuing to grow there, which I think is exciting, especially because this to me is just a beautiful continuation of the Arrow line.
Thank you. And it's like, you know, it really doesn't ever get real. Like I said, you'll never get used to that feeling. Every time someone backs your campaign, you never get used to it. And it's nice that on Kickstarter there is more of a movement towards kind of cardist and slightly unique decks at the moment, because it's always been such a premium deck service really on Kickstarter. And when I first joined with Grid 3.5 years ago, whatever it was kind of like, oh, there's a hole here for something else. And it's nice to see that there's just a lot of decks doing that slightly different route at the moment.
Yeah.
So
no
thank
doubt.
you to everyone, honestly. Thank you.
And look at that. AJ just said he backed early pack with one add-on tuck. So guys, if you haven't checked it out, it's definitely worth taking a look at. I have to say, like, I don't know anyone who isn't fascinated by graffiti and street art, at least in some capacity. And the resonance that this has with that kind of style of art just makes this an awesome deck. Even if you haven't, even if you're not necessarily into typographical decks or you aren't necessarily into Luke's decks, this to me stands above, this and the Hexa, I think, are always just going to be awesome like points in your deck career. So
that Hexa, oh man, woo.
So good, so good.
Color on Hexa, yeah, dude. You have I mean, I'll be honest. The Grid series was one of the first kind of series that I kind of latched onto when I got into card collecting.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, no, it was just definitely, different than what I'm used to seeing, whether it was Monarchs and all these other things I was looking at.
Yeah,
it definitely stood out in the crowd, and that was like my first series that I was like, I have to get.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
The limited edition versions are impossible. But
Yeah, I was just going to point this out. So John just said I backed for 2 decks with the tuck upgrade, still on the fence with the Borders limited edition. I'll tell you, John, if you're on the fence, you should do it because Steve can tell you firsthand it is impossible to find them after the fact. People do not let go of them. Steve is missing what? You're missing 1 limited edition at this point?
no, I'm missing probably 2 or 3, maybe.
And it's been like a year, though, at least trying. Yeah.
I don't even look anymore. I give up. So
Yeah.
if you know what? If you back the limited edition, get more than 1 because A, they're worth it because you're never going to find them on the aftermarket. If you get it and you don't like it, you will definitely not have a problem selling it.
Yeah.
Just saying. And you might even make $15 on the deck. So, or maybe more. But I would definitely pick it up if you don't like it later down the road. At least you have it. And you will not have a problem selling it.
I'll buy it back.
I'll
I only have like 1 Grid Series 1 limited edition, so I'd happily buy some of those back.
So
I'd happily buy 1. Okay?
We also had a question here. Where's the tuck upgrade? Did I miss something last minute? So the tuck upgrade, when you go to your pledge, is actually in the add-on functionality now. So if you take a look at your pledge management screen, you can go in there and you'll see that there's an add-on tab. Click on that and you'll see a whole bunch of different add-ons that you can put on. One of them is the tuck upgrade, which is basically it transitions one of your deck from the V2 to the V2.1, correct, Luke?
That's for the standard deck, yeah. For the limited edition, I'm currently in the process of working out what I can do to upgrade that tuck. I didn't think we were going to get to this point. So, now, so as soon as that kind of upgrades from a Cartamundi, just a standard tuck to, a premium tuck, then I'll let everyone know on the campaign, update Instagram, bore people with it, the usual.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it. I'm super excited for this deck. Anyone out there who hasn't checked that out, again, we're going to drop a link in the description below. There's one in the comments. You can click up top. Check it out. Again, Spade's coming in right at the last minute. What's up, Spade? How you doing, man? But yeah, I think this deck honestly is just beautiful. I think the way you did it, Luke, really just stands out in a very fun way. And I love the pink. I think it's bold, it's exciting, and just pops.
Cheers, boys. No, I really appreciate it. And like I say, thank you to absolutely everyone who's spoken about it, pledged for it, shared it, anything. I really appreciate it, honestly.
We do have one last question I'll just pull up here. AJ wanted to know, is the special edition different than the limited edition? No. The cards will be the same. It's just the tuck. So there you go. So yeah, the limited edition is the pink one. We'll pull up the picture again real quick here for everyone to take a look. This is the limited edition. The special tuck upgrade, or the special edition tuck, is this version, but parts of it are blacked out and it is just a tuck change. Whereas the limited edition itself is a whole different set of cards and tuck. So
yeah.
There we go. Guys, thanks so much for checking this episode of The Plug out. We had a great time sitting down with Luke today, obviously, and we can't wait to see what else you come out with, man. I mean, obviously this campaign's still in the works, so it's going to be a while till we get to see what's next, but you're always crushing it lately, man. So keep up the great work.
Thanks, guys, and same back to you, honestly.
And everybody, before we pop off here, we are going to run through the trailer real quick so you can check it out. Then we're going to sign off. Let's pull this thing up. And we can actually talk over it here too, because we had to mute the sound, but Andrew did an amazing job with this trailer.
I found he literally goes from leaps and bounds. Every video is getting better and better. Yeah, it's really, really awesome.
Dude, it looks so good. The deck just looks beautiful in motion.
It's interesting that the black areas just kind of morph into one, and then that kind of pink pops out, and then obviously the guys with the UV lights and stuff can have some fun with this one as well, because it will just bring that out. And it's on the ad cards, it's on the Ace of Spades, it's underneath some of the courts. It's just in there as an accent color to give it a bit more energy throughout.
Nah, I definitely love it, man. I love the use of UV ink in a lot of the decks we're seeing lately in the community. I think it just does such a great job. So
I love those ad cards and jokers. Those are dope.
Thank you. I think that, and just to touch on that, one of the Jokers is the same as the V1, but a slight recolor. The other three are all kind of new stuff. It's all about tying in and giving enough difference, but some similarities to create the set. So thank you.
Nice.
No doubt, man. Well, thanks everyone for coming out today. We really do appreciate it. Luke, thank you so much for coming on and telling us a little bit about the deck. I know we're excited about this. Hopefully everyone else is as well. For everyone out there, make sure to like and subscribe and check out our next live this Thursday, guys, with Jason Marr. We're going to be checking out some awesome magic, talking bullwhips, magic, Australia, and all that fun stuff. So hope to see you there.
Nice.
Cheers, guys.